the newly confirmed oldest architecture on Earth, Karahan Tepe. I am going to learn about Karahan Tepe, which is believed to have been built around 9400 BC, approximately 7,000 years ago. Relevant materials were referenced from the Karahan Tepe website, https://www.karahantepe.net. Karahan Tepe, carved into the rock above the Euphrates Plain in the highlands of the Tektek Mountains in southeastern Turkey, has been buried underground for over 10,000 years. This place is not just a simple ruin. It is one of the oldest sacred sites discovered to date, older than the wheel, older than writing, and even older than the concept of a city. Karahan Tepe, part of a larger archaeological site known as Stone Hill, is located 60 kilometers east of the ancient city of Şanlıurfa. Şanlıurfa was once known as ancient Edessa and was a crossroads for prophets and kings. Karahan Tepe was constructed around 9400 BC. It predates the pyramids by 7,000 years, Stonehenge by 6,000 years, and exists before pottery, metal, or crop cultivation belonging to the pre-pottery Neolithic period. What has been discovered? Karahan Tepe is filled with strange and ancient wonders. T-shaped megaliths over 3 meters tall, including unfinished works left on the hill, and a sculpted human head staring from a stone-buried chamber. A phallic-shaped pillar, leopard-patterned and bone, human bones, a mysterious eagle-shaped stone, and a statue that looks like a dead person. In the new hole of the room, where the rib-exposed corpse statue was excavated, we received reports that a human skull was found. As of July 29, 2025, there has been no official report yet. In this site, a stone-built room and fireplace, a millstone and food processing tools, storage space, and habitable space were confirmed along with the temple. It may have been a place that served as both a home and a temple. It would have been a place where people lived, worked, and worshipped together. Karahan Tepe is not just an ancient ruin. It is a place that cannot exist. This reverses the flow of human history. These temples were not built by settled agricultural societies. In fact, there is a possibility that something existed before the agriculture we know today began. That changes everything. How did nomads or semi-nomads construct such complex structures in an organized manner? Without agriculture, cities, or writing, how did they carve symbolic monuments with stone carving techniques that seem to have been passed down through generations? This suggests something radical. The first reason they gathered was probably for spiritual purposes. Temples may have been established before villages. What are the things we still do not know? Why were these structures intentionally buried? In both Karahan and Göbekli, the structures were not abandoned but ceremonially buried. Why did it happen? Was it a ceremonial closure? Was it a spiritual seal? Was it a response to a crisis? Why did they put in so much effort when there were no clear economic benefits? There is no agriculture, no trade goods, and no palace. They are just the massive stone monuments carved into the rocks by hunter-gatherers. Why did that happen? What do the phallic symbols and leopards signify? Are they symbols of fertility? Markers of a clan? Spiritual animals? The frequent appearance of genital symbols and predatory animals seems to suggest a symbolic system that we can no longer understand. Could all of this have been part of one huge ritual network? Karahan is one of more than 10 archaeological sites currently discovered in the Taş Tepeler region, and many of the sites exhibit similar architectural styles. Were these different communities? Was it a pilgrimage route? Or was it a seasonal ritual center? Who were these people and where did they go? We do not know what they called themselves or what language they used. All that remains for us are their stones and silence. What is the difference between Karahan Tepe and Göbekli Tepe? Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, buried for over 11,000 years beneath the hilly region of southeastern Turkey, are among the greatest archaeological mysteries of our time. These two sites are rewriting everything we thought we knew about the origins of civilization. Long before the invention of pyramids, Stonehenge, or even pottery and metal tools, Neolithic people carved massive T-shaped pillars, arranged them in a circle, and decorated them with animals, humans, and abstract patterns. They accomplished this using advanced techniques and stone tools for purposes that we still do not fully understand. Göbekli Tepe was the first archaeological site that shook the archaeological community when megaliths were excavated in the 1990s. However, now Karahan Tepe has been excavated just 35 kilometers southeast of that location, and archaeologists believe that this site may be older, more complex, and more profound than Göbekli Tepe. So, what are the differences between the two? Well, shall we get started? Common origins, the oldest temples in the world? Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe both date back to the pre-pottery Neolithic period, around 9,500 to 12,000 years ago. This was thousands of years before the invention of writing, the wheel, and domesticated animals. At that time, people still hunted gazelles and gathered wild plants, but they came together to construct massive stone temples featuring intricate artistic expressions. Many sites have T-shaped pillars arranged inside a circular fence. These pillars can reach a height of up to 5.5 meters and weigh between 10 and 20 tons. They were made from wood sourced from a nearby quarry. Some pillars are engraved with animal carvings such as foxes, snakes, wild boars, birds, leopards, and lions, along with mysterious symbols, while others have no decorations at all. What is clear is that these pillars were not erected randomly. These pillars were part of a belief system, worldview, or spiritual or ritual tradition, and we have only just begun to decipher their meaning. Both archaeological sites were intentionally buried after use. It is not simply that they were forgotten over time. Someone at that time deliberately filled the sites with debris and fragments to preserve them for thousands of years. Why did that happen? The reason remains a mystery. So, what makes Karahan Tepe special? The similarities between the two sites are astonishing, but Karahan Tepe is not simply a replica of Göbekli Tepe. In many ways, Karahan Tepe may be even more bizarre and perhaps more complex. 1. Architecture within the bedrock. The structures at Göbekli Tepe are primarily built above ground and consist of independent T-shaped pillars surrounded by stone walls. The buildings at Karahan Tepe are directly carved into the rock. One of the most notable features is a sunken chamber with 11 phallic-shaped stone pillars rising from the floor, known as the Pillar Pool. This place appears to, 2. A skeleton statue with exposed ribs. In 2023, archaeologists at Karahan Tepe made a truly astonishing discovery. It was a life-sized statue of a seated man, intricately carved to an unbelievable degree. The ribs, spine, and even the genitals were exposed, and it was in a peculiar pose. This rib-cage human is the most realistic representation among the figures found at Neolithic sites of the Say. 3. Signs of settlement. Göbekli Tepe has long been interpreted as a ceremonial site rather than a village. Initially, archaeologists found no evidence of houses, trash, or long-term habitation. However, the situation changed later. In contrast, evidence of a nearby settlement was immediately discovered at Karahan Tepe. Stone tools, food remains, and residential areas were found in the vicinity. Layout and symbolism. The structure of Göbekli Tepe consists of several circular structures, each featuring two large T-shaped pillars in the center, surrounded by smaller pillars. The carvings primarily focus on animals, sometimes depicting aggressive or threatening postures like those of scorpions, snakes, and eagles. In contrast, Karahan Tepe features more human figures, such as human-like statues with exposed ribs or faces carved into stone. Additionally, more underground spaces were utilized, which may have served as a realm for consciousness or a womb for spiritual rebirth. The arrangement of the archaeological sites is also different. While the layout of Göbekli follows a relatively open structure, the arrangement at Karahan is mysteriously intricate and labyrinthine, seemingly designed to guide participants on a journey. This aligns with the hypothesis of Dr. Necmi Karul, the chief archaeologist of the site. One controversial theory regarding Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe is that these temples were used to process and display human skulls. At Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, archaeologists found skulls or fragments of carved skulls, some of which had holes drilled into them and lines engraved. This may suggest a skull worship practice, specifically the ancestor worship custom of removing, decorating, and displaying the heads of the dead. Such customs are also found in other archaeological sites in the Anatolia and Levant regions. Other theories link these sites to early forms of shamanism, hallucinogenic rituals, or fertility rites, but there is still no conclusive evidence. These sites reveal that over 11,000 years ago, in a time when there was no agriculture, the people of southeastern Turkey constructed monumental sites for something sacred, not just for survival. Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe are impressive not just because they are ancient. They are even more impressive because they reveal the spiritual impulses of human history that predate civilization itself. These ruins remind us that religion, rituals, and art are not merely products of settled life, but rather one of the fundamental reasons we became settled. The desire for people to gather, engrave meaning on stones, and honor ancestors and deities may be as ancient as the development of rituals themselves. And now, thanks especially to the efforts of Turkish archaeologists, including the Tarsus Tepe project, we have finally begun to piece together that puzzle. A bizarre human-shaped statue has been excavated at Karahan Tepe. In September 2023, Turkish archaeologists made a groundbreaking discovery at Karahan Tepe that could shake the prehistoric research community. A 2.3-meter-tall male stone statue, believed to have been created around 9400 BC, was found carved into a fixed niche in the ground. The statue, with deeply carved ribs and clasped hands, sitting on a low bench with a chilling expression, is known as the human with exposed ribs, or corpse statue, and is one of the oldest realistic human sculptures in existence. The existence of this statue opens an entirely new chapter in our understanding of early human symbolism and rituals. This statue's presence offers profound insights into the beliefs and practices of early humanity. But who was he? A leader of the community? A warrior? A shaman? A god? This statue was discovered at Karahan Tepe, one of the largest and most interesting sites among the Taş Tepeler ruins in southeastern Turkey. Located about 35 kilometers from the more famous Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe has emerged as a major center for the Neolithic excavation led by Dr. Necmi Karul, the official project director of the Taş Tepeler project. In the stone chamber carved from the rock, archaeologists unearthed various enigmatic artifacts, including not only fragments of human figures but also plates, bowls, U-shaped benches, human bones, and an eagle-shaped stone that suggests it was used for rituals. This stone chamber gives more of a feeling of an underground temple or ceremonial space rather than a living area. Dr. Karul explained that this discovery will serve as a cornerstone for understanding early Neolithic art and symbolism, pointing out that the anatomical realism and emotional expression of the sculptures are entirely different from previous works of this era. Let's take a closer look at the elements that make the sculpture of the corpse so unique. Anatomical details. The ribs, spine, chest, and arms of the sculpture are meticulously depicted, showcasing not only artistic skill, but also a deep interest in viewing the human body as a vessel that carries meaning at the moment of death. Skull and plate. While the official report is not available online, our investigation team heard that skulls or fragments were found in the same rectangular entrance hole on site. The bowl and plate are presumed to have been offered as sacrifices. Genital emphasis. His genitals are clearly depicted and intentionally highlighted. This is a motif that appears repeatedly at the Tasa Tepeler archaeological site, suggesting a connection to fertility. The eagle-shaped stone found at the same location supports the ceiling hypothesis. At Karahan Tepe, we discovered more than 10 skull fragments, some of which showed signs of burning or exposure to heat. We also confirmed that tools like flint were used, resulting in irregular scratches and chips. Such treatments were applied to the skull at regular intervals, suggesting a connection to consciousness. Human figures have also been found at Göbekli Tepe, but they are not as common as at Çatalhöyük. Most of the pillars at Göbekli Tepe are T-shaped megaliths, particularly depicting arms, belts, and loincloths, which are believed to represent stylized human figures. However, the faces are not visible. The pillars lack eyes and expressions, featuring only arms and symbols. However, when Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried, the removed statue heads were ceremonially placed within the site. In contrast, the corpse statue, or human with exposed ribs, represents a fully realized individual with emotions, anatomical structure, and identity. He feels like a human captured at the moment of transformation, perhaps death, conscious ecstasy, or the moment of initiation. This makes him a completely unique presence in the entire recorded Neolithic period. During the excavation season at Karahan Tepe in October 2025, archaeologists made astonishing discoveries. For the first time at the site, a T-shaped pillar was found, with a human face directly carved on its upper part. This pillar was found not in the monumental area of Karahan Tepe, but inside a residential structure. It was a sunken house built directly on the bedrock, coated with mud plaster. Archaeologists discovered 3 small T-shaped pillars inside the room, which are believed to have served both as supports for the roof and as sacred symbols. One of these pillars had a human face carved into it. Deep eye sockets, a wide and flat nose, and sharply carved cheeks were noticeable. According to Professor Necmi Karul, the excavation director of Karahan Tepe, this house was built vertically underground with walls coated in mud plaster and a stone floor. The pillars inside were smaller than those in other areas, but they served more than just a structural purpose. Looking at the decorations engraved on the surface, it is clear that these stones held artistic and symbolic significance beyond architecture, said Karul. He added that the face supported the theory that the team had long advocated. We have long argued that the T-shaped pillar symbolizes the human form. The horizontal bar represents the head, while the vertical bar corresponds to the torso. This new pillar makes that idea even clearer. He pointed out that the facial details are very similar to other Neolithic sculptures excavated in the area, which shows a continuity of style connecting Karahan Tepe to sister sites like Göbekli Tepe. This pillar was found not in one of the monumental areas of Karahan Tepe, but inside a residential structure. It was a sunken house built directly into the rock with mud plastered on it. Archaeologists discovered 3 small T-shaped pillars inside the room, which are believed to have served both as support for the roof and as a sacred symbol. In early 2025, another full-body statue was discovered at the Karahan Tepe excavation site. Like the first prize that drew attention earlier, this new statue also exhibits the same characteristics. With both hands gathered on the lower abdomen, the body stands upright with ribs exposed, carved from a single block of limestone. This statue was found in the same area as the previous statue, and the discovery of a human skull placed in a rectangular niche suggests it held ritual significance. The proportions of the body, facial features, and the shape of the phallus clearly indicate that this statue belongs to the artistic language of Taş Tepeler. The discovery of 2 statues in almost identical poses within the same ritual complex can be interpreted as symbolizing their beliefs about life and death, beyond just being simple works of art. Karahan Tepe is not the only place that reveals the human form. At another archaeological site in the Taş Tepe culture, Sayburts, archaeologists recently unearthed a carved figure with astonishing similarities. It features distinctly depicted ribs, hollow eyes resembling seashells, and a stitched-looking mouth. It is unclear whether these similarities are intentional or coincidental, but the comparison is important. This is because eyes in the early Neolithic period of the Near East were often associated with the dead. The famous skull from Jericho, which had shell fragments placed in the eye sockets and was covered with plaster, transformed human remains into something between ancestry, existence, and symbolism. While such practices have not been confirmed at Tektek Tepe, it is clear that collecting skulls and bones was part of the local culture. Human skulls and bone fragments have been excavated from various archaeological sites in this region, including Göbekli Tepe, Sayburç, Tepe, and Karahan Tepe. Although skulls completely covered in plaster, like those found in Jericho, have not been discovered here, the similarities between Sayburç and Karahan Tepe suggest that the dead may have played an active role in rituals or symbolic life. Some artifacts found in this region depict an erect phallus. Other sculptures show stylized figures that grip or wrap around their lower bodies, like the two newly discovered statues at Karahan Tepe, known as the Urfa Man. This statue does not look like a living person. With exposed ribs, it appears gaunt and revealed, almost like a corpse after death. And right next to it, the genitals are still vividly sculpted. It is a strange sight where the two symbols of decay and reproduction coexist within a single figure. Do these sculptures represent important figures in the community, or are they general symbols conveying a deeper message about life and death? In many early cultures, a person's role did not end with death. They transitioned to other statuses such as ancestors, witnesses, and guardians. The body, or a statue representing the body, allowed such roles to continue. These objects were not merely tombs or monuments. They were a means of actively maintaining the deceased within the community. The Rectangular Enclosure of Karahan Tepe. One of the most interesting artifacts newly discovered at Karahan Tepe is a long, rectangular room directly carved into the rock. Unlike any circular structures discovered so far, this structure extends completely straight and is narrow, resembling a stone amphitheater carved into a mountainside. While its exact purpose is still unknown, this rectangular structure demonstrates that the builders of Karahan Tepe were exceptional stone sculptors. This not only broadens our understanding of the archaeological site, but also highlights the creativity and complex design skills of early architects.